So we're going to start with an applause. Applause. I'm standing up here talking to all of you about things, and that definitely takes some applause. So, full applause. Yay, thank you so much. So, I'm Sadie, thank you for being here. I want to jump right in and tell you more about my business, Butterfly Creative Projects, and what that means. Some people hear it and they're like, oh, interesting, there's an NCET in it. What does that have to do with creativity and design? I'm going to tell you right now. So, we're all familiar with the metamorphosis that a butterfly goes through, right? The 4 steps, as you can see here on the screen. Egg, caterpillar, cocoon, and then a beautiful butterfly. And similar to that metamorphosis is how I run my creative process with my clients. They come to me with this idea, this egg. They go out, we become a caterpillar together, and we do research in the community about competition. We look up and get inspiration online. We're fact checking, we're doing all the right things before we move into development, right? And then we take that beautiful idea that's been growing and researching around, it goes into a wonderful cocoon and it starts to develop. That's my favorite part of the process, when I actually get to do the design for you, my clients. And then it moves into the butterfly stage. That's the second best part, because we get to launch that project that we just spent all this time working on. So similar to a butterfly metamorphosis, each creative process goes through the same steps, but the end result is individually unique each time. So that's a little bit more about what Butterfly Creative Projects means. And how can my company help you? I can do things like make beautiful presentations like the ones that you're going to see today. I can help make a logo, update your branding, make an event flyer like the ones Jason was handing out for a show and shine event on November 10th. Please go to that. If you need a new business card, I would love to help you with that. A postcard, menu, you take nice holiday pictures of your family, you want to send it out, get everybody feeling warm and fuzzy in the mail, I can help you with that as well. So, we're all in business for a reason, right? It's for your why. We all have a why we do things. It's not, it might be to just make a paycheck, but at the end of the day, that paycheck goes to something, right? And my why is my people and my pets, my friends, my family, and the things that I get to do, many of which are in this room. Thank you again for being here. This is Benji. He's very cute. But my why is my friends, my family, getting to travel, go to concerts, do different artistic things, try food and drink around the area and out of the area. So being in business gets me to my why. So some facts about me. This is me as a kid. Go ahead and awe, it is very cute. Something I've been considering is going back to the bangs because it really is a good look. But since I was young, I really did like butterflies. You could see the stickers, you could see me being a butterfly fairy princess. So it's been happening for a long time. I went to high school in Southern California as well. I got to participate in yearbook and work with big fancy cameras and start working and doing actual layout in the software that I use for all of my clients every single day. So that was really nice exposure to start getting organized, working with big groups of students and putting something on paper that actually was digestible. Then I went to community college for a year and went to a college fair, and that's how I found UNR. I got to come out and do a little Nevada bound trip. I don't know if anybody else had the opportunity to do Nevada bound, but it sold me on the program, and I got to be a part of the Reno School of Journalism, where I did tons of different group projects and kind of took the creative role. I got my minor in public speaking, so this is super fun for me and not nerve-wracking at all. The more people, the better. But working at UNR, going to UNR was awesome. I got to do an internship with the Small Business Development Center, which is a subset of the SBA. And student government, all sorts of stuff. But after college, I jumped right into work like everyone does, but I was kind of starting by balancing both worlds, right? I'm sure there are a lot of people in here who was working for someone else while trying to do their thing on the other side and trying to maintain both, deliver what you need to for your boss that pays you from 9 to 5, and then also deliver for the clients so you're getting while you're out networking and putting yourself out there. So I was doing that a lot, working all day, coming home, working at night, working on the weekends. And it was a lot. And then I finally put a name to my little egg, to my idea. Butterfly Creative Projects was born in 2021, and it was an awesome day. It was in January, I remember vividly. And then this year I got to jump into working for myself full-time, which is the best thing ever. My boss is awesome. She lets me go to whatever conferences I want to go to. She approves my time off. If I want to take the day, just take the day. She's great. And by she, I mean me. I love working for myself. So fun. And like Sarah mentioned, I did have the honor of winning the SBA's Young Entrepreneur of the Year. It was really awesome. There are many people in this room who helped contribute to that by writing letters of recommendation and listening to me freak out on the phone when they're submitting, but it was awesome. I got to go tonight and pick up that award. So now that you've learned all about me, you will be quizzed at the end. So I hope you have lots of notes. But now that you've learned about me, let's talk about what the plan is for the rest of this presentation. I'm going to be going over things like what is a brand specifically, how to harness the power of your branding, the need to transform your brand from time to time, how to implement, how to sustain. We're going to play a little fun game at the end. And then again, if you have any questions while I'm presenting, you see something that's like really stumping you, please just give me a little wave and I'll help answer your question, hopefully. So defining your brand, something that you're going to see a lot throughout this presentation is that it's not an overnight thing. I mean, maybe someone in here was lucky enough to wake up one morning with the idea for a brand, bam, it's super successful. Yeah, we should talk because I want to learn how you did that. But generally speaking, branding really does take a lot of time. It's not an overnight thing. So what exactly is a brand? A brand is more than just a logo or just the name. It's actually the entire perception or the reputation or the impression that you put on your community and the people around you. It's a result. So it's how the gut feeling people get about your brand is what a brand is. So there's some key elements in a brand, of course. You'll see these icons and some of these words sprinkled throughout the presentation. But a big part of a brand is your identity. That's when you think of like your logo and your colors and your fonts and what it visually looks like. Then of course there's values behind your brand. What's important to your brand? What isn't important to your brand? There's a promise that you make to people, of course, with the service that you provide. And then of course consistency. That's a huge part of your brand. You're going to hear me say the word consistency like a million times during this presentation. So why does any of this matter to you at all? I know why it matters. I work in branding and logos and marketing every day. It's super important to me. But why does it matter to all of you? There's a lot of reasons. So branding matters because of recognition. A strong brand ensures that your business is easily recognizable, standing out in a crowded marketplace. Like pretty much every business in here, there's another business that probably does similar to what you do, right? There's a lot of people who work in insurance. There's a lot of bookkeepers. There's a lot of designers for that matter. And the way to stand out is by having your brand nice and tight and recognizable. It makes it memorable. That helps people come back to you again. So trust and credibility as well. So a well-established brand builds that trust and credibility, making them more likely to choose you. If they see that you're everywhere and it all looks the same and it's all buttoned up, that's like, oh, okay, they have it together. I can trust them. That seems pretty credible. It's all lined up everywhere. When I look here, it's not different from there. Having strong branding also adds to your customer loyalty. How many people in here use Apple products? Right, and how many of you probably have been using Apple products for a long time? You saw the brand, you enjoyed how it was presented to you, you enjoy the interface, and you go back time and time again because they prove that they can be trusted with their software, and you'll stay loyal to that brand. Having great branding also may help you attract talent. Let's say you have some amazing brand, and this wonderful sales rep from across the country is moving to the area, and he found you, and now he wants to work with you, and that's bringing more money into your pocket. That's more customers. That's more of what you need, right? So the more buttoned up you are, you can have better employees working for you, which in turn helps you get paid more and go back to that why that we talked about earlier, right? Also higher perceived value. Things are all cleaned up and nice. It seems more expensive, let's be honest. If you go into a restaurant and the plating is beautiful and the seats are heavy and the lighting is warm, and the servers are super friendly, you're willing to pay a little bit more, right? There's a higher perceived value when you walk in. You've done a really good job harnessing their brand, their company. And then of course, all of that ties back to consistency and ends up getting you long-term success. The more you focus on what your brand is doing and how you're operating, the more long-term success there isn't really much that all of us are inconsistent about that works out in the long run, right? Any questions so far? So, we're gonna talk about implementing your brand. So there's a lot of ways you can implement your brand. We talked about that identity a few slides ago. This is the same here as brand guidelines. I'm gonna show you what that looks like in an upcoming slide. But training your employees is super important for implementing your brand, having consistent messaging, and then also being willing to get feedback from people, right? It's not always, there's a way to give feedback and be heard and not leave anybody feeling upset, and that you can grow with it for your business and for yourself. We're gonna go through these. So, for my business, this is what I call a visual identity one sheet. This is what I provide to my clients after we work on a logo project together. This is like the fun package, the little final bow, the cherry on top at the end that my clients get. It includes their logo. It includes variations of their logo. It might include a pattern. It includes fonts. So that way, when you have Comic Sans on your, yes, good, laugh, that's the right reaction. If you have Comic Sans on your business card and then you go onto your website and it's like some horrible, hard to read small cursive writing, that doesn't look very good. But if you have brand guidelines or a visual identity one sheet, we're able to call out specifically what font someone should be using, so no matter what platform you're on, it all matches all the time, every time, making you look more professional. So there's obviously, of course, different versions of a brand guidelines. This is a pretty summarized version, a little one sheet. For some big corporations, like think Coca-Cola, their brand guidelines, I can bet you, is probably a couple hundred pages, very thick. It goes into personas, like what's the name of the actual person they're trying to sell to, where do they live, how much do they make, how do they like to be talked to, what's the spacing in between the lines. So it can get really specific and drilled down as much as the client wants, but I think at a minimum, we need to be able to know what our logo is, what our colors are, what fonts we use, and what the vibe is just at the beginning. The way I like to use these, for example, is let's say you're ordering sweatshirts for your staff to do a holiday photo shoot, right? You can take this and hand it to your vendor. Yeah, it's a good idea. You can take this and hand it to your vendor, and they're only gonna pull samples in this color. So now they're gonna give you sweatshirts in this beautiful maroon, you're gonna take pictures with your staff, it's gonna go on your website, on your social media, and it's branded all the way down to the photo. And that just makes you look more professional, more credible, honestly more fun, and so it's super important. When you make one brand, you're actually making millions, right? So this ties into training your employees. This is because people relate to and interpret your brand in different ways, right? How I might interpret Apple's commercial is different than the way Evan might interpret Apple's commercial. And so when you're building your brand, you want to teach your employees the values, why you started, why you do what you do, so that when they go out, they're able to talk just like you and represent the brand well. The last thing anybody in here wants is to send one of their staff members to a trade show and they're out there spewing the wrong information about the brand. And people are calling you asking for one service, and that's not the service that you provide. But when you train your employees and set them up for success about your brand and why you do what you do, it's only gonna come back and help you in the end. So, consistency, we keep talking about that. We're gonna use the Apple example again. So if you think about Apple and you get your new phone in the mail, think about the packaging that comes in. It's clean, it's white, there's not a lot of color, it's not crowded with a bunch of text, everything's all buttoned up and nice and perfect. And then you go into the store and there's a lot of open space and open counter space and not a lot of color. And you watch their commercials, they're using the footage from their actual phones. It all ties together well, it all makes a lot of sense. It's all really consistent. There isn't something that you see and you're like, that's weird, that's pretty Android-y. I don't know why that's there. We can talk after. Okay, so consistency, why is it important? Of course, memorability. If you're consistent across platforms, it's gonna be easier for someone to remember you. If you look different here and you look different there, how will anybody remember anything about what you're doing? Professionalism, of course, too. If stuff doesn't match, I mean, that happens. I wear things that don't match, I post things that don't match sometimes, and it's not the end of the world. but it definitely makes you look more professional when everything matches. I hope that point is being made very clear to everybody, make sure everything matches. Being consistent actually saves you a lot of time. You can work with a designer or with someone on your team to build templates for things that you do all the time. If you're constantly sending letters out, you should have a wonderful letterhead that has your logo and your contact information and gets printed the same every single time. And that'll save you time because you're not like, oh, where's that logo saved on the drive again? What's our phone number? Whose name needs to go on it? By creating templates, you're actually saving time in the end, which puts more money back in your pocket because you're not having to reinvent the wheel every single time. It makes you more credible, like we talked about. Recognition, similar with memorability. And then just like we talked about earlier with standing out in a crowded marketplace, you're being different. Plenty of businesses are inconsistent with how they do things. And so if you're consistent, that's gonna set you apart right there. So we've talked about what to do. What shouldn't you be doing? Let's talk about what you shouldn't be doing. You should never ignore feedback. If someone comes to you and says, this product made me feel sick, for example, the last thing anybody wants to do is ignore it. And chances are someone else has had that same issue too and just said, oh, it's just a fluke, I'm not gonna say anything. And so if someone comes to you and gives you feedback about your service or about your business, take a step back, it's for business. You wanna adjust what you're doing and react to that feedback. But if you don't react, that doesn't make you look very good. And what does that do? It makes people lose trust in what you're doing because you're talking to them and you're ignoring them. It's a whole thing. Another thing we don't want to do is copycat. We all love seeking inspiration from Pinterest and from other people in our fields. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a book called Steal Like an Artist that talks all about that. But what you don't want to do is find someone's website, take a screenshot of it, recreate the website, just change the name and the phone number, and now you have your own quote brand. You don't want to do that. That actually will get you in a lot of trouble. The other thing you don't want to do is neglect quality. How many times has someone in this room bought something, the quality was crap, and you didn't buy it again? Yeah, I see a lot of nodding heads. I just bought shoes for a wedding. Waited forever for them to come in the mail. They came in the mail, took it out of the package, the clasp was broken, both shoes already. Do you think I'll ever order from them again? No, because they neglected quality. And when I gave them feedback about my shoes, radio silence, which doesn't look very good. That doesn't make me want to recommend their brand, nothing like that. You don't want to be inconsistent, we've talked about that. You don't want to sacrifice quality for cost. Good things cost money, guys. You have to invest in your system, in your systems, you have to invest in your people, you have to invest in what you're doing. If you're only willing to spend $5 or $10 on your logo, there's probably 50 or 60 other logos in the area that look just like that. You need to invest in what's important to you, and marketing is super important for your business. And then another thing you don't want to do is rush rebranding. Don't wake up tomorrow and decide you want to switch from red to green, guys. Please don't do that. Take your time, think about it, think about the repercussions. Think about how someone in the community might react to that change. A great example I can give you is Gap. If you can picture their logo in your head, it's kind of tall and thin, right? They've had it forever. There was a very short period of time where they switched their logo to something more broad with like a little square in the corner, and people were pissed. People were super, super pissed and threw a whole thing online, and you know what Gap did? They went back to their old branding, which is crazy, and that's like a huge company we all have heard of and shopped at and look at all the time. People rush it all the time. But they listened to the feedback, they didn't ignore it, and they went back to what was working before. Still doing good. Any questions? Awesome. So now we're going to talk about transforming your brand. So there are a lot of reasons to potentially transform your brand. These are just some examples, do with them what you want, of course. But as a business owner, one of the most critical questions you'll face is to consider changing your brand. Brand transformation isn't something that we ever want to take lightly. It's not just something you snap and decide. But there are some key scenarios, of course, that might prompt you to do that, and that's okay too. So an example would be evolving business direction. Let's say, for example, you own a cute little coffee shop in your neighborhood, all your neighbors come over, they're drinking coffee with you, but now you've decided, well, I want to expand to the rest of the city. I want to expand to the rest of the state. I want to expand to the state next door. What's working for your little neighborhood might not work for the rest of the state that you're in, right? So that might be a good time to start transforming your brand because you're evolving, which is a wonderful thing. Another time is when there's a merger or acquisition. Companies get bought all the time by other companies. I used to work for a company that was called one thing, got bought by a parent company, and it was a very, very, very long, there's a lot of people in this room who worked at that company. There was a very long conversation about how to smash those two brands together and not totally scare every client away, because sometimes people think, oh, well, did the product change? Did my sales rep change? Did the actual formula change? Is the taste different? Is it gonna make me feel weird? Like, all these different questions come to mind when things start merging and changing, when actually everything could be the same, it just got bought. But there's a tasteful way to merge those brands together, but that might be a time to transform. Another one would be having outdated image. Maybe, your company has something about it that now isn't considered PC, and you wanna shift away from that so that people aren't commenting on it. That might be a reason to transform your brand. Maybe you just want to update to a new modern look and feel, and you're just bored with how flat it looks and you want something more three-dimensional. That's okay too. That might be a time to start to transform. And then of course, the obvious one that no one ever likes talking about is legal issues. You may come across some copyright issue. You may come across some legal issue that involves a lot of spending of money and time feeling upset about what's going on. And in some cases, honestly, it may just be easier to start transforming your brand than dumping a lot of money into legal issues. Of course, it's all situational, can't tell you what to do, but those are some reasons of why you might consider transforming your brand. So here's a couple of logo examples of brands that transformed, and they didn't do anything crazy, right? They're still going from a brown shield to a brown shield, and a blue circle with some lines and black text, the same thing. But what happened is they added shading and they made it a little bit more three-dimensional. But neither of these are so scary different that you would stop using AT&T or UPS. Here's some other examples. Burger King is a great example. They've been around forever making burgers. I think it's super interesting that they had basically the logo that they have now before. They transitioned away from it and then came back to it. So I'm curious in here what feedback they got that inspired them to go back to what they were doing before. But just remember, you rule. Dr. Pepper has had a million designs of their logo. They've been around since 1885. That's a long time. So of course, it's going to change over the times. A lot has changed in general. But something that you can notice here is that they stayed in the red maroon style color palette. They used a similar style text that was like a little curly but not too curly. They didn't deviate too much, but it did take some transformation with the times. Target's another one. There's a lot of brands that we know just for their icon, right? If anybody saw just the bullseye, you would pretty much immediately know it's Target. Same with the Apple, same with the Nike swoosh. You see that and you know exactly what it is without seeing the rest of the branding, right? And so basically all Target was really trying to do these last few rounds is figure out how to make the text the best. But besides that, they really landed on the icon. Instagram, we all use, the logos changed quite a few times as well. And it's pretty interesting. I don't know if anybody else ever thinks of this. Like, we use some of these things every single day. And like, of course, colors change and all of that changes, but it is amazing to see all together. Like, oh, I didn't realize it's had 5 or 6 logo variations since I started using it in 2010. It's interesting. But outside of just your logo and your brand, there's other things that come with your brand too, right? It's packaging maybe. It's the color sweatshirts that you're wearing. It's the type of apparel that you pick. But there's a lot that goes into it. Another example would be business cards. I have had so many versions of my business cards, guys. It takes a long time. Shout out Alan for printing them, making them spotty. But it takes a lot of time. As you can see here, it was a slow transition. It's basically been all orange. I just wanted to adjust the orange. It's been black text, but I wanted to make it easier to read. I know that my audience that I work with spends a lot of time on the computer and on screens, and the last thing I want as a designer is for my potential clients to be doing this, not able to read it. That's not good. So when you work with a good designer, they're thinking about things all the way down to that level. We want it easy to read, we want it bold, we want it interesting. And just for funsies, here's the first logo I ever drew ever in life. This was fun to find. I dug through Facebook forever for it. I hand drew it and then scanned it into the computer and used Corel Draw, if that software means anything to anybody, and made a little business card and started handing them out, and I was making money in LA. Hey, doing business with these cute freaking cards. I was like, this is what I do with the kids when you're gone. We clean, we bike, we play sorry. I put them to bed, and it was awesome. So there's lots of ways to sustain your brand. So like we talked about earlier, those brand guidelines, that visual identity one sheet I showed you with the logos and the colors and the fonts, that's a great way to sustain your brand. Another one is being willing to adapt to change. A great example of a quick adaptation to change that I can think of is when there's like a viral social media moment, and then businesses have their team hop on that social media trend and make a cute little video and post it. Think like Barbie, how everybody was jumping on the Barbie train. That's like a quick adaptation to change. Of course, there are some bigger ones like new innovations to tech, for example. But sustaining is adapting to change and not staying stagnant. We all hear about brands that don't want to keep up with the times, and they just fall behind, and it's unfortunate. But there's so many good things and tools that we can use that we're able to adapt to and make our businesses better. And we talked a lot about consistent messaging. That never goes away. The longer you're consistent, the better it works out for you. And then, of course, feedback. We want to be willing to take feedback. So remember, your brand isn't what you say it is. It's actually what everyone else says it is. A brand is your reputation. So if you're putting your best foot forward, you're trying your best, you're promising, you're delivering on the promises that you make, then you're building a great reputation for yourself, and others can speak to that reputation. But if you're lying and over-promising and under-delivering, people remember that. People remember that experience, and when you're out networking and someone says, oh, do you know someone who does blah? And they have a bad taste in their mouth from the reputation that they get, that's not gonna work out. But so just remember, put your best foot forward, try, be professional, make it all matchy-matchy. I went to a conference last week, they put this slide up, I had to take a picture, I think it's so important. Don't forget to do what we do for ourselves. We all work really hard, we will drop everything we're doing for certain clients and hop to it and deliver for them, and we'll go above and beyond, but sometimes we don't always give our own business that much time, right? I have been working on certain projects for my business for a while, but they get put on the back burner because I have to deliver to everybody else in this room, and we all do that. But if we can prioritize doing what we do for ourselves, it only makes our business stronger. So for me, I have to set time aside to plan my own social media content. I have to set time aside to come up with my own email marketing campaign for something that I'm working on, even though I might be working on an email for Tony. I still have to make time for mine as well, because if I don't make time for that, then my business won't grow. If you treat your clients with respect and will do whatever they need, you gotta do that for yourself too. Okay, we've made it. Spent all that information on you, I hope you're okay. We're gonna play a quick little game. This is just like a shout out situation. What's really interesting about this game is that we all see brands all the time and we learn about them subconsciously all the time. And you actually know more about them than you think. Sometimes you don't even need to hear their slogan. Sometimes you don't even need to see the logo itself. You already know who it is, right? So, does anybody know what brand this is? Little Brown. Oh, it's the, I'm looking at it. Oh, it's the color? It's screwed up here, guys.
It's supposed to be black.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely red. I'm sorry if you can't see it.
Yeah.
So this is yellow and red. Yes, we all know McDonald's. Okay, so this is a blue. Think small box with a bow.
Tiffany's.
Subway. Very good. This is green. Green and black If the color was better, this would work. Okay, shades of purple. I'll give you a hint. You can drive through this place. Would you like to make these Okay, so some accounts to follow if you're interested in keeping up with my shenanigans. My business name is Butterfly Creative Projects. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, send me a letter in the mail, whatever works for you. My personal account is Sadie Fienberg, and if you're interested in food and drink, I love posting about where to eat and where to get cocktails around town and out of town for that too. Follow snack on that _. Alright. Thank you again to all my peeps in my microclimate for keeping me sane. These are all my friends and family wearing my cool hats. And yeah, I couldn't be able to stand up here and run my business and do what I love to do for my wife without all my people. So thank you again.